but we're not going to open up audio for verbal questions during this section of the evening. You can do that in the breakout rooms with each of our presenters, but feel free to have smiley faces or reactions of any kind as we move through the night. And then if you need to leave the event for any reason, please do so by hitting that leave button on the far right corner at the bottom of your screen. And if you can stay unmuted during this portion, and then when we move you into breakout rooms, you can unmute and share video and have conversations with people. It's kind of new and different. So welcome to Second Tuesdays. It's kind of renamed. We're going to call it Second Tuesday Showcase, and it's presented by the El Paso County Democratic Party. My name is Ultra Donahue, and I am a member of the Executive Committee for El Paso County Dems, and I'm happy to host this evening's showcase. First and foremost, this is community outreach, so anyone that's interested is welcome to attend. Feel free to share the links. Feel free to share the information for these events moving forward, and we hope to get a decent crowd every time. We're going to vary the topics every month, and we have a new format to share, so I apologize, and I'm excited that tonight you all are guinea pigs on this process, but we are going to try and make it a little more interactive for everyone. I think everybody across the board is probably pretty tired of Zoom meetings where it's a presentation. We want to make sure that you all have interaction with both each other as well as the presenters, that if we were in person, we'd have a little bit more opportunity to do so. So tonight, I've got a short presentation at the beginning, right into our theme, which is the Earth Day and environmental activism and legislation. Then we have three wonderful presenters who are going to discuss their own organizations, their environmental activism pieces, and then we're going to move you all into small groups where you will round robin style move through the presenters. So you'll be able to have about a 15-minute conversation in these small groups with each of our presenters, which again is the new format, but we're hoping it will be enjoyable for everybody involved. At the end of this evening's event, there will be a survey that we're going to put out. We would really appreciate the feedback, not only because this is our first attempt at this particular format, but because we as a party really do want to hear from you as the participants and make sure that we are giving you information that is of interest. And we would love suggestions moving forward as well. So please keep an eye out in your email for that in the next 24 to 48 hours. I know I've heard the doorbell, so I know a few people have come in. But let's get started. So April 22nd is what we all know as Earth Day, which started 51 years ago. The first nationwide Earth Day celebration was organized by Senators Gaylord Nelson and Dennis Hayes, and it created a national political presence for environmental concerns. Since then, millions of Americans have joined, and it has become a global effort, including more than 1 billion people in more than 193 countries. That flag and torch has been taken up by earthday.org, used to be earthday.net, and they continue to coordinate global activism, awareness events, and education in almost every country around the world. This year's theme is Restore Our Earth. Climate change and other environmental degradations have broken our natural systems, leading to new and fatal diseases, as well as a breakdown of the global economy. Just as climate change and coronavirus painfully remind us of the harm we've caused, Restore Our Earth reminds us of the opportunities that lay ahead. We must restore our Earth not just because we care about the natural world, but because we live on it. Every one of us needs a healthy Earth to support our jobs, our livelihoods, health and survival, and happiness. And a healthy planet is not an option, it is a necessity. And I feel like this not only plays into the Democratic Party's ideals, but also most of us hopefully as individuals as well. So to give you some perspective, I am 41 years old this year, and Earth Day is 10 years older than I am, but I vividly and regularly have the inclination of it's always just been a part of my life. So in doing this project tonight, I not only went down a rabbit hole of environmental activism and information, but also was kind of surprised by some of the things that did not exist until my lifetime. So some of you that are a little older than me may not be surprised and probably remember the before time, but I was quite surprised at the after effects. So EarthDay.org's mission is to diversify, educate, and activate the environmental movement worldwide, which they have been doing now for 51 years. The Environmental Protection Agency defines climate change as any significant change in the measures of climate lasting for an extended period of time. We see this locally with the increase of not only temperatures, but fire danger, drought for both crops and just the municipalities. We get our water from Western Slope, and there's less and less of it. But they do really focus on climate change being a long-term disaster, as it were. So I didn't know until January 1969 when there was an oil spill off the coast of Santa Barbara, California. And that is what spurred the beginning of Earth Day and the EPA as we know it today. So I tried to pull a highlight from every year of the last 50 or so years, and things that I was surprised by, but also things that sort of created change within the environmental legislative actions within the U.S., and some of it is global as well. So in the 1970s, which is when all of this began, Nixon is the one who established the EPA, which I was personally surprised by. It seems out of character, but it was all because of that oil spill in California. The Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Safe Drinking Water Act were also all enacted later in the 70s. And until that point, there wasn't actually legislation or directives for how much contamination could be in our drinking water. And the labeling of CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, were allowed to be 100 parts per billion, which on average added one additional cancer death per 10,000 people who drank water. That has since been changed. And on December 31st of 1971, DDT was banned. It is still a controversial action, having been done so. But again, things that we have always existed in my lifetime and are actually fairly recent on the environmental scale. Some of the big ones, 3 Mile Island in Middletown, Pennsylvania, I was born early January of 1980, and to have something like that within a year of my existence was, personally finding that out was just sort of awe and shock. But it led to a presidential commission, and their response became regulations of nuclear power, which have continued today and continue to change and have continued to be rolled back and all kinds of things. Love Canal HOA is out of Niagara Falls, New York. Lois Gibbs, those of you who've been in environmental activism may know that name, but she was instrumental in creating CERCLA, the Superfund Act, which held companies accountable for environmental problems that they caused. It has since gone bankrupt in 2003. let's see. USGAO entered the environmental site in 1983. At that time, they had a report that 3/4 of all off-site commercial hazardous waste facilities within EPA Region 4. So that includes Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, Tennessee, and 6 tribes were receiving from that area 3/4 of all commercial hazardous waste. I think that inequity probably still stands today to some degree. And that was the first time that the GAO was brought into the environmental fight. It just proved racial inequity within the dumping sites for toxic waste. On March 4th, 1989 was the Exxon Valdez oil spill and the birth of Dawn dish soap being an environmental cleanup. However, within 1 year, which is somewhat quick on the legislative calendar, they had written an Oil Pollution Act and passed it in Congress. That began a slew of pollution and specifically industry-based regulations, including the Pollution Prevention Act, which implemented and promoted cost-effective changes for industry and business to make pollution-reducing and business-growing solutions around the country, specifically adding tax credits for wind, although solar tax credits wouldn't come around until 2005. So again, the 90s created a lot more legislative pieces until we got to 1995, when the Republicans took control of Congress and verbally announced an attack on environmentalism. And that would last for well over a decade. As we move into the 2000s, Bill Clinton is in office, and he, as he exits office, is highlighted for having protected over 58 million acres of national forest. Meanwhile, Bush comes in and emphasizes the growth of oil, coal, and nuclear power around the country. Some of those choices that Bush made and pushed his administration are still in play today and are still being dealt with as far as trying to get those put back into place as environmental protections. Hopefully, moving forward with this Congress, we'll have some changes that we can implement. 20 years in the making. Let's see. Begins the automakers versus California, which was court cases and legislation regarding emissions. And ultimately, the Climate Stewardship Act was presented 3 times in 4 years and was never passed until 2007, when the greenhouse gases requirement was put into place, which made it a national requirement for certain businesses and industries to report their greenhouse gas emissions. And that's really where we start to see sort of the uptick of environmental reaction from not only the community at large as far as citizens, but also businesses realizing the impact that they have. In 2009, Barack Obama took office, and there was hope. That was until April 20th of 2010, when we had the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. It is, to date, the largest of all time and took more than a month to stop the spill of oil into the Gulf. Again, it spurred enormous outrage and proposals for environmental action, but nothing passed. And, oh, sorry. Now we are in the point of a new Congress and new interest. So after more than 20 years of extensions, Congress approved extensions and phase out of tax credits in 2015. Those would theoretically go into effect, I think, by the end of this year. And so now, 2019 and forward, we have groups that are supporting the Green New Deal. The House of Representatives has the Climate Crisis Committee, and both the Senate and House of Representatives have climate solutions caucuses. And there's continuing growth and interest in creating a more environmentally friendly legislative package moving forward. At this point, as we have younger generations moving into the political arena, the question is, of course, just how will you contribute to all of these efforts, locally, nationally, and globally? So there's been quite a few things presented. A lot of them I was actually quite surprised by. But I want to hear more about our local environmental activism. We're going to start with Amy Gray of 350 Colorado. Amy is a 350 Colorado volunteer and JEDI director and co-coordinator at Stop the Money Pipeline. She's an expert in organizing mass mobilizations and forming diverse coalitions. Amy's been a longtime supporter of 350 campaigns and began her journey into activism fighting the KXL pipeline and Dakota Access Pipeline. As a volunteer and JEDI director, Amy has helped to start new teams, train and empower volunteers, and engage new members. She also oversees the justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion work as a trainer in anti-oppression and intersectional climate justice organizing. She is a climate finance campaigner and co-coordinator of Stop the Money Pipeline, a coalition of over 150 organizations working in climate finance. She also sits on the board of directors for 350 Colorado Action and the Chinook Center. She was the recipient of the 2020 Climate Warrior Award from the El Paso County Democratic Party for her work on decommissioning the coal plants in El Paso County. So I'm very excited to have Amy Gray. She's going to introduce us to 350 Colorado and her current activities. Amy, if you are ready.
I am. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. She, her pronouns. I do live here in so-called Colorado Springs, Colorado, on occupied Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho territory. And I work at 350. I've been with 350 for about 5 years now. And basically, we're a mass movement organizing to end the reign of fossil fuels and build power for a new economy and working towards a just and equitable transition off of fossil fuels. And I'm a millennial, so yes, we are coming into our own. And as such, you know, we have a vision of a planet and an economy that sustains and regenerates the land, the water, the air, and all of the people. We envision, you know, a world where human rights are always respected and our ecosystems thrive because people are stewards of the earth and the land. We have to think about an economy in which we have the power to determine where our money goes towards the things that make our communities healthier and safer permanently. We want to invest in real community safety and real climate justice. And you know, just for everybody's information, so this is what we work to accomplish. We're working towards a fossil-free future, a just and equitable transition, creative climate solutions, and a livable climate for all. So we know, you know, that humans are causing the climate crisis, you know, and I'm sure you may have heard, you know, some of the causes of climate change are natural, you know, and that is true. The amount of energy coming from the sun, ocean changes, and, you know, volcanic eruptions, etc. But most scientists agree that this does not and cannot account for the recent temperature increases. The rapid change has been caused by humans. We have impacted the earth by deforestation and the burning of coal, oil, and gas. This adds heat-trapping gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide into the air. And that's what are called greenhouse gases. And that's where they get their name from. You guessed it, greenhouses. And while they aren't responsible for climate change or the gases that bear their name, understanding how a greenhouse works can help us understand how the earth is warming. And when humans burn coal and other fossil fuels like gasoline, the greenhouse gases that are emitted enter the atmosphere and begin to work in a similar way to the glass ceiling of a greenhouse. So the most recent IPCC report says that we had 10 years, now we have about 7 to solve the climate crisis. So this is what we do at 350 Colorado. So we have 15 staff and 5 local teams across the state, including one here in Colorado Springs. We're the largest grassroots climate organization in the state with over 20,000 members. We're an independent affiliate of 350.org, so we choose what we work on locally and we run our own campaigns. 350 is a bottom-up organizing model. So that means grassroots power at the grassroots level. Next slide. So our biggest win, I'm sure you're all aware of this, but if you're not aware, our biggest local win was decommissioning the Drake and Nixon coal plants. And I was the lead campaigner along with Anna McDevitt from the Sierra Club, who is my wonderful colleague and partner in fighting coal in Colorado. So last June, the CSU Utilities Board voted to accelerate the timeline for the closure of its 2 coal plants and make critical investments in renewable energy. Drake is one of the last urban coal plants. And it will now close by 2023, not 2035. And Ray Nixon will have to close by 2030 as well. So they have voted to approve a portfolio and energy resource plan, and it was portfolio number 17. And that replaced the 416 megawatts of coal-fired power with 500 megawatts of new wind energy, 150 megawatts of solar power, and over 400 megawatts of battery storage in order to make sure that we have modern and reliable energy for Colorado Springs. And the other thing that was great about this was CSU ensured us that no employees would lose their jobs in utilities energy switch, creating a national model for a just transition off of fossil fuels. And there's our press releases in there, which I can share my slide deck with y'all later, and you can click on all the links and resources. So what did we accomplish last year? So just a little bit about what we do. Like, even through the pandemic, we remained committed to action to solve the climate crisis. We moved our events to social distance online activities and hosted over 140 actions or events with over 10,000 participants. We supported Earth Day Live, which was a 3-day global virtual event with over 4 million participants. We launched a massive Get Out the Vote effort last year, and our voters reached over 97,000 likely environmental voters to help them make it to the polls. Our volunteers and staff attend every AQCC, COGCC, CDPAG, or whatever regulatory hearing. We're there. And after for us, after years of campaigning, we did secure that fossil-free future path for Colorado Springs and getting us off coal. And Boulder, we secured a win there as the first county in the nation to screen insurance carriers for their ties to fossil fuels, and we passed the state's strictest fracking regulations. So we're excited about all of those things. And I think the rest of these slides were kind of intended for the breakout groups so that I could talk to folks about how to get involved with 350 Colorado. And I can talk to folks about how they can help us take action at the Capitol. So I will pass it on. Check.
Thank you so much, Amy. Next up is Jim Lockhart of the Sierra Club Pikes Peak chapter. Jim has been a conversation chair of the Pikes Peak group of the Colorado chapter of Sierra Club for nearly 20 years. He has also served as chair of the group and executive committee member, as well as a hike leader. And Jim is a retired legal editor who has written for several of the nation's leading legal publishers, including Shepard's, which is now LexisNexis, in Colorado Springs. He is a native of Ohio, but has lived in Colorado Springs for the past 36 years. Jim is also president of Wild Connections, an environmental nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting wildlands and wildlife corridors in the Pikes Peak region and beyond. So welcome, Jim Lockhart, and you're going to share your screen, sir?
Yeah, I will in a second. I just wanted to give a little introduction here. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. The Pikes Peak group is part of the Colorado chapter of Sierra Club. It represents members and supporters in the Pikes Peak region, which is Teller County, El Paso County, and areas to the east and west of that. Along with the Colorado chapter, we work to advance climate solutions, to act for social justice, to get outdoors, and to protect lands, water, air, and wildlife. The Sierra Club is the largest and most influential grassroots organization, environmental organization in the country, and for over a century has been helping to shape the way that people participate in local, state, and national advocacy, and show how policy works so that we can better protect the planet. We work alongside other organizations, local and national, because we are all together, we're more powerful. So it's a great opportunity today to be able to join these other groups in giving you a presentation here. And I would like to just share a little bit of pictures here, just to give you an idea of some of the activities we are involved in. Right now, one of the most important activities which we are involved in is protecting our parks. I should mention first that our priorities are wilderness, Fountain Creek, open space and development, wildlife, and beyond carbon. So this call fits within open space and development. I'm presently on a committee which is working to try to develop a TOPS extension, the Trails and Open Space initiative, to extend that. It's been going on for 25 years now, and we've only begun to do the work that we could be doing. There's a lot of areas still out there to protect. This is just a picture of one of our park areas. This is Stratton Open Space. If you happen to be here, it's, as you can see, they're trying to turn it into a bicycle mecca, but we also want to preserve it as open space, where people, wildlife, everybody can cohabitate. Another activities which we are deeply involved in is protecting wilderness. And right now there are a couple of things which I do want to call your attention to. There is the Colorado Wilderness Act, which is part of the which is important because it includes areas in our neck of the woods. This is Beaver Creek here. It's part of a Protect America's Wilderness Act, which is an act which did pass the House of Representatives earlier this year and is presently before the United States Senate. And we're hoping for action on that. It would protect areas across the state. And like Beaver Creek, it would protect areas that are low elevation. We have many of our wildernesses, what we call rock and ice wildernesses, that are not quite as important to wildlife as these areas which make good wildlife corridors. As Amy already mentioned, we did work with them to get the Drake plant closed. So I just want to say with that our group called Beyond Coal, which was working on that, is now Beyond Carbon, and we're working to try to extend the protections beyond just we're closing the plants. We're interested in working on a variety of other issues, such as to reduce such as public transportation, sustainable housing, rezoning to make more livable and walkable communities. We've also always been involved in the multi-group activities. I said this is a picture of the climate march from 2014. Yeah. Of course, with the coronavirus, we haven't been able to do anything live for the last year. We haven't had any events or outings, but we have had virtual events, and we're hoping that by July, we'll start to have permission to go back to live action again. Some of our past successes include protecting Pikes Peak. We were responsible through a lawsuit for the paving of the Pikes Peak Highway. This is a picture of some people going up as part of our celebration to look at some of the impacts which we have avoided. This area is what we call Severy Creek, and it's an area which was heavily impacted by gravel flowing off the highway, which the paving of the highway was able to stop. We also work and we'll continue to work hopefully after July 4th to clean up. This is at the El Pomar section of Fountain Creek, and one of our groups called the Fountain Creek Water Sentinels, which is actually a combination of the Pikes Peak group and the Sangre de Cristo group in Pueblo, are working together to protect Fountain Creek. One of our activities is to conduct cleanups of the creek. We also lead hikes. We encourage people to visit the watershed. We have what we call an iNaturalist program. You can get in, take pictures on your cell phone. You can download them to the iNaturalist webpage and record what you've seen, whether it's problems, whether it's wildlife, whatever. We also, Pikes Peak Group also has a second cleanup of the Roswell Reach, which is in downtown Colorado Springs. We do tabling. This is an Earth Day event. We try to pass out information to make sure that people know all of the activities which we are involved in. We work with other organizations. This is a healing hike, which we held with the NAACP back in 2015. And you probably recognize that, what it is in the background there, the Garden of the Gods. And, you know, we're environmental justice, equity is one of our important issues, which we have been really trying to focus on this past few years. And finally, I just included this because you can never have enough wildlife photos. You know, I'm really only scratching the surface here of what we do. We are the broad-based organization which tries to tackle all the environmental problems, because as our founder, John Muir, said, if you look at everything, you find it's all connected. And I do want to also emphasize that we are a grassroots organization. At the local level, we have no paid staff. We are all volunteers, and we can certainly use all the volunteer help we can get. If anybody is interested and would like to talk to me further, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to present here, and we'll go on to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Jim. Our next presenter, also a member of the El Paso County Democratic Party's executive team, is Liz Rosenbaum, and she's with Fountain Valley Clean Water Coalition. In 2016, the communities in southern El Paso County were told they had been contaminated since the 1970s by toxic PFAS firefighting foam. Since this was the fourth largest scale contamination of various kinds in this small area, Liz met with the others and they turned their anger into action, forming the Fountain Valley Clean Water Coalition. Thanks to FVCWC and Liz, local, state, federal legislation has been created, and we now have groundbreaking prevention policies. Colorado is now moving in the direction of prevention instead of reaction. Grassroots community activism works, and Liz did the organizing of her community to accomplish life-saving progress forward.
All right.
So Liz.
Thank you so much, Walter. And I think you had a graphic for me with what you read. I'm not sure. So the things I'm going to be talking about in our breakout room will be how I have moved things from the first year of figuring out what the heck is PFAS to what do we do about it, how did it affect us, and now this year we haven't even needed to have a meeting. We're just watching the implementation of 4 amazing bills that here our state's Water Quality Control Commission to set up ways to have prevention rather than reaction. And, you know me, I like to talk to a lot of different people, and I'll tell you about some great people that I've met along this amazing journey. And, you know, simple interviews. A local dentist and a water district manager. What the heck does that have to do with PFAS? Well, dentists have to filter out the mercury at their facility. So I called the health department right away and I said, hey, why can't we mandate these companies to filter all this stuff at their source, no different than what we require of dentists? As a former small business owner, I always had to have a grease trap, even though I didn't have French fries. So along those lines, you have to have a grease trap, but there's nothing to overlook how often that thing is cleaned out or maintained So I also took that experience from my personal life and guided the health department in some other oversight ways to talk with the community. And I'll show you the amazing stuff that the state health department has on their website, that they have worked closely with me and other people in my community to make sure it is something we can all understand when we read it. So I look forward to talking with you some more in our breakout room. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. All right. So these are the rules, so to speak, for our breakout rooms. We'll have each one hosted by one of our presenters. You as a participant will be pushed into a room, although some of you will be staying in this main room as well, so that we have 3 separate groups. And you don't need to leave the rooms at the end of the time. The presenters will be leaving the room. And that way everyone stays together, and we make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak and interact with each of our presenters. So in a moment, you'll see a join link pop up on your screen. Go ahead and join. Once you've gotten into the room, feel free to unmute and share your video so you can actually talk with everyone in the room. Say hello. Give us about a minute, minute and a half, hopefully, to get everybody pushed into the right spaces. And then we will be posting within the group time notices at 5 minutes before ending, 3 minutes before ending, and 1 minute before ending, at which time we will pull presenters at that time frame. If you want to hit the leave room button on your screens, you'll come out, and then we will push you into the new group so that you guys can rotate through. If for any reason you need to leave the meeting during this time, feel free to click the leave room button, and it'll give you the option to leave the room or the meeting as a whole. But we hope that you can take advantage of this small group conversation, get answers, questions, and some community building with everybody in your small groups. So we'll see you all in a few minutes. It'll be about 12 to 15 minutes per room breakout. So you'll have plenty of time, hopefully, to chat and speak with the presenters and each other.
If you are in the main room, you are waiting for Amy, and she will start sharing her screen here in just a moment.
I will. There's somebody still screen sharing, so I didn't want to over their screen.
Nope, it's just the rules. You're good.
Okay, good. Okay. I was like, is it okay? All right. So just to finish kind of like what I gave the introduction of what is 350 Colorado. This is ways that y'all can get involved with us, and we would love to have you. So one way is to join our local team. 350 Colorado Springs is looking for new volunteers to join our leadership council or just to volunteer. Joining our leadership council kind of means meeting once a month and helping like plan events and, kind of giving input on campaigns and, doing some of the behind the scenes organizing work, helping with social media, creating graphics, writing emails. We have all sorts of things that we could always use volunteers for. So if you're interested in that, we do now have a local staff person. Her name is Riley, and her email address is riley@350colorado.org. So if you're interested in volunteering with the local team, please email her. So our local campaign that we're working on is still related to Drake. A lot of the time, these big NGOs, they kind of swoop in and they do their campaign and then they leave. And they leave behind the frontline community and the community and those that are affected first and worst by fossil fuel infrastructure and the climate crisis. So our goal is to help ensure that there is actually a just and equitable transition from the Drake coal plant by advocating and working with the communities most impacted and working with our local elected officials to address the remediation of the land that Drake sits on, as well as the impacts that it's had for over 90 years on Fountain Creek. There's still a lot to be done. That coal plant has been there for decades and decades and has continued to pollute the land, the air, the soil, and the water around it. So we want to make sure, especially for the Mill Street neighborhood, I don't know if you guys know about the Mill Street neighborhood, but that is the neighborhood like directly next to Drake. And I've met so many wonderful people from that neighborhood over the years of fighting Drake, that it just felt for us the most natural thing to continue to uplift the voices of that community and make sure there are reparations to that neighborhood for the impacts that they felt at the hands of the fossil fuel industry. And surprisingly enough, I don't know if y'all are aware of this, like we talk a lot about, you know, what the impacts are on frontline communities, but you know, we would think that it's like the coal ash on the cars or, you know, the pollution in the air, and sure, like definitely those are concerns for them. But in meeting with folks from that neighborhood, they expressed to me that the thing that disrupted their daily lives and affected their quality of living the most was honestly, they said it was the sound of the train whistle from the coal train that just like barrels through their neighborhood and whistles every time it stops to, you know, to drop coal, or then it keeps going. And that really affects like their everyday living. So we really want to make sure that the city of Colorado Springs works to address those issues, and that the most important thing that we can do also is making sure that that land is not sold to the highest bidder and to the developer with the most cash, because we don't want to see our historic neighborhoods and the folks that have lived there for decades become gentrified because somebody waves cash in front of somebody else's face. So that's our biggest concern. So when we thought about like, well, what do we do after Drake? We stay and fight, because that's what we do. And that climate justice is social justice. And we have to keep remembering that everything is intersectional, from economic justice to racial justice to climate justice, you know, to for-profit prisons. Everything is interconnected, and we have to fight for each other to get real justice and equity. So that's kind of what we're working on now. So if you're interested in that kind of hefty work, we would love to have you help us out. But we also have tons of other opportunities. We're a statewide organization. So like I said, we have 5 teams. So we have a staff person at each of those 5 teams. And then we have committees, which is kind of under the 350 umbrella. So after Drake, I'm still the lead campaigner on coal. So now I'm working with Anna from the Sierra Club on fighting Excel, which is the state's largest energy provider and the most polluting by far. And the most polluting coal plant that they have is in Pueblo. And that does directly affect us, and it does directly affect our neighbors. So we're working to decommission the rest of their coal fleet. So that's an exciting campaign. So then we have our fracking committee, which, as you guys know, we are very lucky here in El Paso County that we do not live on top of a shale plate, because if we did, there would be a fracking rig outside everybody's school and backyard, and wherever they can get it, they will. So we're lucky that we don't have that here, but the rest of the state is not so lucky. We have turned into a petro state. And so fracking is affecting the communities, you know, up in Boulder, Broomfield, Commerce City, Greeley, Fort Collins, Loveland, Longmont. That whole entire end of the state is just being fracked to death. And there's an astonishing amount of environmental racism involved in the fracking industry. So we're working to combat that and to really take on the fracked gas industry, because when they call it natural gas, that's just a really nice greenwashed word for fracked gas, which is incredibly detrimental to our climate. It is way more polluting than coal. The emissions from its extraction all the way to when it is used in your home are astronomical, and that is what is exacerbating the climate crisis. So fracking, another, you know, I know this is a lot of heavy topics, so this is what we do every day at work. We're working on public lands, making sure that we're protecting our public lands from the fossil fuel industry, which luckily right now we kind of we get to take a deep breath because President Biden has, you know, put that pause on permitting on public lands, and we're hoping to influence him to keep that permitting off of our public lands. So that's another committee. We have a defund climate disaster committee also, which is really exciting if you're into climate finance like I am. So we're working to take the money out of the hands of the fossil fuel industry, the banks, the asset managers, and the insurance companies, and reinvest it in our communities. So we're trying to defund PARA, which is the Public Retirement Association. Sorry, hold on. Sorry, my min pin lost his cookies over hearing the door. So that, we're divesting public funds. We're helping, influence the banks to divest from fossil fuel companies. So if you're into finance, we'd love to have you there. We have regenerative agriculture also, which is very exciting. We have a great staff person working on that. Renewable Energy Committee, very self-explanatory, but they do a lot of really great webinars. And they work hard to promote clean energy in our state. We have our Legislative Action Committee, which definitely ties into this group of people. And I'll go through some bills that we're supporting. Climate policy. If you're a policy wonk, that's the space for you. We also have a Youth Action Committee, which was recently started by some of our youth organizers, and they're amazing. They're having their own youth lobby day next week. And I'm so proud to see these young folks really stepping up. Like Gen Z they're lit, y'all. They're going to cause some problems and I love it. So it's exciting to have them organizing stuff. So some of our stuff that we're doing at the Capitol this year, or this legislative session anyway, we have a toolkit, and I'll share this slide deck with y'all so you can have it. There's a toolkit to set up a meeting with your legislator on any of these bills. So if you're so inclined, I know that a lot of our legislators down here in the Springs, I don't even have a nice word for some of them. They're just, difficult. I'll try to be diplomatic. But we have our PARA fossil-free divestment, which is HB 21-1246, and that's calling on PARA to divest from fossil fuels and invest in local clean energy jobs and infrastructure. And there's a bunch of links in here. There's talking points that we've made. There's very, easy information to digest on each of these bills, which our policy department does, because I'll get a bill in front of me and I'm like, oh my goodness, like y'all are so wordy, like just plain language for the rest of us. So there's a lot of great information in here on how you can advocate for these bills. There's air toxic protections, plastics regulations, demand side management. There's a community choice energy study. The bill is not yet, but it's coming. And then public banking. We were really hoping for that bill this session because we'd love to see public banking in Colorado. It is a much needed alternative to, the big, dirty fossil fuel banks who are funding the climate crisis. But there is they've been said next session, so we're going to hopefully hold them to that. Definitely this is how you can support us there. You can also help us out monetarily. You can donate to our local team. You can become a monthly donor. You can also get on our email list if you just want to see what we're up to and like dabble in some of our monthly meetings. Like we have public facing meetings every month. This month we're doing a really fun one for Earth Month. We joined and are a partner in the new Colorado Springs Solar Co-op. I don't know if y'all have heard about Sun yet, but next week, I think on the 21st, I want to say, I'll have to look on the calendar. They're coming to give a presentation on how to join the solar co-op, which makes solar so much more accessible to us, to the working class, those of us who don't have, those thousands and thousands of dollars to toss at solar. As much as we'd like to, we still have to participate in the systems of oppression because we are being held down by our economic status. So we're hoping to take that and make renewables more accessible to everyone. And I think that's really an important thing that we can do for our community. So I think, yes, that is the end of my information. So I'll stop sharing. That was a lot of talking at you, and I am sorry. Questions, comments. I know so many of you in this room too. Like I know Stephanie and Amy and Aza, I know you and Tim. So if anybody's got questions or things that we're doing at 350, please ask.
Where are you sharing the information?
Oh, here, I will share the slide deck right now in the chat. That way you'll have it. You can access all the links and share it with anybody you like as well. The cool thing about 350 Colorado is that we're open source because we believe in the power of sharing skills and information. So feel free to use any of this if it'll help you in your organizing.
And when you say youth, what ages do you mean of youth?
Our youth group is 24 and under.
Okay. Like 10, age 9, age 10, age 6, like that ages,
you know,
or voters only?
No, I mean, the girls that organize this group, they're 15 and 13. And they hold monthly meetings. They plan events, they host webinars, they are doing a lobby day. Like, they blow me away. I'm so impressed by them. So yeah, like, even, you know, like, I have a 10-year-old and he loves this stuff too. You know, he loves going to marches, and he understands, you know, what to do and who to get involved with. So if you have a young person who's interested, please send them my way and I will get them hooked up with that great group of folks. I mean, I only help them when they need like adult help. Like, they do the whole thing themselves.
Great, thank you.
I'll get my son involved. He's really enjoying that. For real, yeah.
For sure. And I'll put my email in the chat also. So any of you can email me or hit me up, and it's really easy. It's just volunteer at 350colorado.org. That was clever when I picked my emails. Any other questions, or how y'all doing too? Stephanie, I haven't seen you in a hot minute.
Yeah, I know. I was going to ask you something, but I don't know if you'll have time to answer it. And if not, you can shoot me an email or something. Do you know, do you have any insight about what the deal is with this composting and recycling bill that's being opposed? That I think looks pretty good, but apparently there's some hangups. And I was just kind of reading it going like, I don't see why we can't do like the plastics management and this, because they could complement each other, but apparently 350 is opposed. And I was like, that's okay. All right.
Okay. Well, is
that news to you, or?
It is news to me.
Okay.
I'll ask our policy mom why, what is in there that's problematic, because I mean, to us, like normal folks, we look at something, we're like, yes, composting, all this, let's do it. But there may be language in that bill that is detrimental to a community or a group of folks, and like, so we need to pressure them to reword it. Or
it's Senate Bill 180. They said the most I could seem to catch about it is that it's supported by like manufacturers of packaged goods, because basically they're going to put a new fee on all of the separate food packaging, and then create a grant program so people can start composting and recycling centers where we don't have any. Like, why is that? I don't understand why that's bad, but okay. I don't know. There must be something.
I'll find out and let everybody know, because, you know, if it's important to support, I mean, like, I love composting and putting it in my garden, but if this is something that's, you know, detrimental, we just need a language change, then we can all advocate for that and still get our composting bill through. I'll find out. I'll let you know.
It'd be great to have commercial grade composting in Colorado.
I didn't know there was a
Absolutely.
countdown. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Oh, I think we're all being kicked out or something.
We're transitioning.
We're transitioning.
No, they're bringing in another person.
Transitioning, sorry, not being kicked.
Well, for what it's worth, I compost. I just use pallets out back.
Welcome, Jim. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah.
How'd that happen? Okay, what I did with the other group was I just asked people to kind of go around and, you know, say briefly what environmental issues they're interested in. So why don't you start, Amy?
Sure. Environmental issues that I'm interested in. Still having a planet when my kids grow up. And that's kind of the big one, right?
Yes. Okay, well, Stephanie? Oops,
Clean air, clean water, clean soil. Possibly, I don't think we can reverse the mass extinction that we're in the middle of, but we can maybe slow it down a little bit and mitigate its damage to ourselves.
mhm. Tim?
Oh, am I supposed to call in somebody? I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
Asia, go ahead.
I just,
Or are you supposed to?
you'd like to say something, Tim? And you are muted.
I am unmuted now. Well, for 20 years, I look out my front window at that downtown Drake plant, and I am glad that we have moved forward and fast at this point to close that thing. It's going to be very good. I've been breathing that air half a mile away for a while now, and
Okay,
that's my environmental good thing.
okay, Katie?
Oh, well, I am a scuba diver. Live in
Mhm.
Colorado as a scuba diver, but obviously the oceans are an important environmental thing as well to me.
Great, and Asia?
I'm mostly focused on how we can get younger people involved in environmental awareness. I'm from Florida, so I grew up knowing about like recycling, how to like just various things that would affect the ocean. We talked about wildlife all the time and things like that. And when I come here, actually, I noticed it more when I moved to Arizona. Arizona really doesn't even recycle very much, like glass, for instance. They don't recycle glass, which is weird. But and then I moved here, and there's even less recycling here, which I am very kind of like, it's a shame. So that's something that I focus on, and also something that I'm trying to do in my kids' school district is trying to see if we can get like what is it, like get people interested in agriculture and how we can like because okay, so out in my house district, house district 19, there's been like a reduce in like rural and farmers and things like that, ranchers, things like that. And it's going to much older people, and younger people aren't going into the field as fast to replace it. So I'm like, well, we need to get more people interested, and more than just, people out in the rural area. We need to get people like us, city folks, or people who aren't really live out there. And the crazy thing is that I think people think too far into it and think that it's just like so complex, and it really isn't. So like I've been like researching different ways of how we can get people interested in it and things like that. So that's what I like. So
Great. And Nick, I believe you're the last one. Do you have anything to add to what is your interest, particularly in environmental matters?
Nick, if you're speaking, we are not hearing you.
Yes, you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you.
Maybe you can type your answer in the chat.
Yes, that'll have to work. Yeah, I've had trouble with Zoom too. It's the best, I think, of all of these programs that I've had to work with, but it's not perfect. So anyway, well, I heard a lot of various issues there that were mentioned, and the Sierra Club is like I say, a broad-based environmental organization, and we do try to tackle whatever comes along in the way of local issues, state issues, national issues. We work a lot with the local governments, local organizations, but also at the state and national level. And I'm forgetting whether I told this to you or to the previous group, but we were active in the recent city council election. We did endorse 3 winning candidates. Richard Scorman, Yolanda Avila, and Nancy Henjum. And we're hoping that we can be able to work with the city to improve the situations here. I'm on a committee which is just being formed to talk about the Trails and Open Space program, and to try to work out a solution to the problem of our terribly underfunded parks. I think you probably know that, during the Great Recession of 12 years ago, the park budget took an incredible hit. And it still has not come back, even after all this time, to the level which it had before that crisis hit. It's if you look at it in real dollar terms, we're still spending less on our parks than we did 13, 14, 15 years ago. So that's going to be, I think, a big issue. We'll hopefully get something on the ballot this fall to extend and possibly to increase the TOPS funding. We are working with the Beyond Carbon group locally to try to, now that Drake and Nixon are closed, we're moving beyond that into the next phase, which is to try to find other ways that we can improve the carbon footprint locally. We're looking at public transit, which really needs to be improved. I've lived here 36 years, and we have not got much bigger bus system really now than we had when I first moved here. It's improved some, but not nearly kept pace with the increase in the population. We're looking for ways to get people out of their cars and into public transit or on the bicycles, improve bicycle lanes, improve other means of getting to work and to shopping. And we recently had a presentation by the Downtown Partnership about how we can make the downtown more livable, more walkable. Hopefully that'll see some action. That's going to be involved in the changes to the zoning code and building codes. Anybody have any questions which they'd like for me to answer, and any issues that you'd like to bring up?
I have a question. Oh, it looks like
Yes.
Nick does as well, but his hand is raised. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how the raise a hand works, so just go ahead.
My question is it was coming up in the chatter on the west side here, which was about the trails and open spaces and TOPS funding and the 24/24 Garden of the Gods rezoning issue coming up. And I'm just wondering if Sierra Club is going to get involved with that city council meeting that's coming up about what's going to be going on with the 24/24 Garden of the Gods rezoning.
I'm not familiar with that. Could you say a little more about it?
Yeah, I don't know much either. I think it was something about some neighbor who's involved with that type of issue was saying that there was enough money to buy the 24/24 Garden of the Gods property, or at least the west side of it, and make it part of trails and open spaces for the city. I didn't understand it completely what they were saying, so but I was like, so I wasn't sure sort of if Sierra Club is going to get involved in that or not. That's a vote that's coming up in city council very soon. So
yeah, I'll have to look into that. I believe what they're talking about is that that area, near Cedar Heights, where the quarry is, that they've talked about acquiring land, and it's not quite in Garden of the Gods, but it's next door to it. And I know it's one of the land parcels which they are particularly interested in.
Yeah,
they've done some. In fact, they made an acquisition about a year ago, I believe, of part of that land, and they're now looking to use the TOPS money to acquire another parcel.
Yeah, and again, I think it was something about the TOPS money can be used to acquire this. Yes. So I don't know if, but again, this is further south. This is over by Navigators, between Navigators and the Mountain Shadows area, not up by the quarry itself.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look into that.
All right, thanks. It's just chatter today. I didn't understand it, so that's why I thought maybe you understood it.
No, I try to look at the city council agenda, and often I don't know what's on there until I have looked at it. One of the things I don't particularly like about the way the city is run is it's hard sometimes to find out what activities are happening and where and how they might impact us. Apparently, they just had a big running race up in Palmer Park had ribbons laid out there, everything for a 50K race. And I didn't even know that was happening until it was over.
Nick,
But,
is your audio working now?
Testing 1, 2.
Oh, great. Yes.
We can hear
Yeah. I had to restart Zoom.
Uh,
I was going to say who I was again because I couldn't before, but the old the MCI property that's now Verizon at the end of Garden of God's Road they're going to build 250 units or more apartments in what used to be the parking lot there, because they downsized from 5,000 to 2,000 people. The planning commission passed it by 5-3 vote. The main big concern is the fires, the traffic, not so much environmental, since it's already zoned industrial. It will be people living there, which won't be stopped much. So I don't know when it's coming up. Earth Day, 1970, started with that up in Denver. Gaylord Nelson came to town, and he started an Earth Day. So that's been 50 years that we've been involved. Maury Wolfson was one guy who helped organize it up in Colorado. I don't know what he's doing now, but we end up doing a group called Bicycles Now. We got them to put bicycle lanes on 14th and 13th up in Denver, Spear Boulevard. Now they have them in Cherry Creek, the waterway itself. And so Denver's a good biking town. And so I've been involved in those issues for a while. I slowed down a little bit. That's where I come from.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, bicycles have become an issue recently, not only on the bikeways and in the streets, but also in the parks, where they have, the city just announced as of Memorial Day, they're going to begin to allow certain classes of e-bikes onto the trails in the parks, and they're going to expand the class of e-bikes. Class 1 and 2 will be allowed on the paved trails in the city. And of course, we support people using bikes to get to work, to get run their errands and so on. And we're happy to see the expansion, because I know people who aren't quite able. I'm probably one of them if I bicycled. That just as you get older, it gets harder to pedal. So we do support the use of e-bikes, as an urban form of transportation. We have a little bit of question about whether they're suitable for park trails, because they, the trails are already getting overused. And I think probably, our view on that is that, we don't have nearly enough parks. If you look at what General Palmer and the other founders of the city left us with, and compare that with what we've added since then, you can see we've really been falling behind. And as I said earlier, the Trails and Open Space tax is one of the ways that you get the money to maintain and to expand the park system. And we're going to be working on that in the upcoming year. I saw a message about 2 minutes ago that we're about to run out of time for this session. Anybody have any last words? Well, I do thank you all for the opportunity to speak to you. As I said earlier in the general presentation, we are a grassroots organization. We do encourage people to join us. It's every third Thursday, we have a conservation committee and executive committee meeting. The conservation committee meeting is open to anybody who's a Sierra Club member. If you want information on us, I did have a press page to send you, but in any case, all you've really got to do is Google Pikes Peak Sierra Club. That's probably easier than remembering the URL. Or if you want to know what the chapter's doing, a Colorado chapter, Google Colorado Sierra Club, and it'll get you there. I would suggest you go to our Facebook page, and there again, you just Google Pikes Peak or Colorado Sierra Club. It'll get you there. And that's where we do post most of our information. We've really had more success with social media in that way than in some others. So
we're going to switch
we're about to
presenters
move.
this last
Yes.
time. Yep.
Thank you all for your time and for listening to me.
And Amy, this is, I think, your room.
I've got Amy in room 2, if you could double check for me.
Okay.
Yeah, we already
Yep.
met Amy.
Oh, that's
All right.
right. She started out here.
All right, Liz,
Give me
I'm
a
not.
second.
Amy, can you move to room 2?
Looks like we got Liz here. Oh, Amy too. Oh, okay. Never mind.
I think I was just in that room with them, with like Frank and
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, Amy just came out of that
Asia,
room.
I love you. I miss you. Look at you. Mwah.
Love you too. Miss you.
Oh, I'm gonna hug you when I can.
I think Amy's due for room 1.
Yep, I've
Yep,
got
she-
everybody moved
okay.
into
Like my
place.
daughter.
Everybody's
All
ready
right.
to begin.
My daughter does it. Mommy,
All
hugs.
good. Liz, the room is yours.
The room is mine? All right. Very cool. So I kind of left everybody with a cliffhanger in the first room because I didn't know how to watch the countdown. There's a cliffhanger to PFAS. Oh my God. So if you open up the chat, I have a couple of things that I'm going to talk about so that way you kind of can track, okay? All right. So many of you know that I've talked about PFAS contamination for a really long time, like 5 years now. And we've gotten 4 pieces of state legislation passed. And I know so many people are like, well, thank God I don't live down there. But guess what? You've been contaminated. Not as bad as me. The worst contamination you can get is when you're drinking it because it goes right into your body. And I'm going to give you a couple little, body lessons and maybe use some potty terms, but you're going to be just fine. We all do that stuff, right? Okay, so this nasty little chemical. Best way to learn about it on Netflix, there's a documentary called The Devil We Know. That came out about a year or two into what we were doing, and we're like, oh my God, this is like explaining everything. We spent a year just trying to figure out what the heck this was, but it happened to us. So the 4 water districts started filtering at a non-detect right away. And PFAS, or 4,700 different types of chemicals made by DuPont. And then they broke off into 3M and said, hey, 3M, here's these chemicals, knowing damn well that they were going to start getting sued, and they didn't give Chem Hours and 3M and all of them like extra money for litigation. So there's big litigation going on right now. But for the most part, Rob Bilott has beaten DuPont, which is huge. So if you watch the movie Dark Waters, make sure you have the S on the end. I spelled it wrong the first time. I apologize. Dark Waters. We have Mark Ruffalo on our side, like the New York firefighters have John Stewart. Like Mark Ruffalo has testified with one of our coalition members, Mark Favors, in D.C. in front of AOC. And she was the only one who came down and said, I'm going to fight this with you. So we've made huge progress with Senator Bennett and Diana DeGette, of course, all Democrats. When I went to D.C. in 2019, I went and talked to all of them and left them little notes. Then there's this book, Exposure, and it's not one of those crazy books where you're like, I'm not going to understand organic chemistry by the end, will I? Kind of. So these chemicals, I've gone to different meetings, and there's one of the head scientists with Center for Disease Control came down and talked to us once, and we're like, some of us are still like, okay, we've been talking about this for years, and I still don't get how it bioaccumulates in our bodies as we drink this. Why doesn't it just go out when we pee? So he did this little visualization that now you're going to understand it too. When we're drinking contaminated water, especially with PFAS in it, PFOA is Teflon, PFOS is Scotchgard, our contamination is PFH excess toxic firefighting foam. So our cells are going around in our body looking for a protein to make it complete. They're like, do, and then you're like, protein, great. It goes into our kidneys, and the kidney's like, that's a cool cell, keep it, kicks it back into our bodies. Or if it says, we don't need that one anymore, it goes out when you pee. This part here, PFAS, mimics a protein. So our kidneys can't tell the difference. And they're like, that's a good cell. Kicks it back into our body. Kicks it back in. So it's bioaccumulating. It is building up in our bodies. The more we drink it, the more it builds up. Good news, I was in on the first blood study. I was at like 19.9 of this chemical. And a year later, when I got retested, I was down to 11 parts. So it significantly dropped in a year. So the longer we go with not drinking the water, the better. The social justice issue part is Asia knows that wide field, security is the most contaminated, and right now is getting all their water from Colorado Springs. Then it, goes into wide field, then Fountain, also Strathmore Hills has been contaminated. Also getting water from security right now. So since 2016, 4 major municipalities are getting the honor of a non-detect. Where I moved to in Midway, we're at 30. Because the EPA says we're at a 70% advisory, nothing has to be done. So if you live in a rural community and you have a well that is under 70, the Air Force says, screw you, nothing says we have to. What the hell, right? Environmental justice is not working for us. You guys have eaten out, right? You've gotten a burger somewhere, Culver's, McDonald's, Taco Bell. You've eaten out, taken something home, a food wrapper of some kind. It has PFAS on it to keep it water resistant and grease resistant. You like microwave popcorn in a bag? PFAS. The list is endless. It is insane. So one thing that I've considered a real privilege, I'm going to do a quick screen share here, is working with the health department to work on the language of PFAS toxic firefighting foam on the state website. This was really cool. So CDPHE, we got them hooked after our first bill. You see that highlighted? That's our little baby. We got that passed with like $50,000 in funding, and I called them on the phone. I said, I know you're going to need more money. Come talk to us. Boom. Great relationship started. So that's where semantics comes into play. I was like, let's pretend we're using the correct words that you need to hear to start doing something on a bigger scale with it. And so one of the gals was like, well, if you said something like blah, 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 so I repeated what she said. She's like, oh, done, we're on it. Half the battle is figuring out what the hell to say and who to say it to. And I find that really intriguing. So, pop quiz time. We have clean air and clean water. What are we missing? Clean air, clean water. What are we missing?
Soil.
Soil. You're going to learn that real quick when you're watching The Devil We Know. Just when you think we've got it cool, we don't. Clean Water Act was okay. It's not going to save the day for us because part of the stuff that's in there is they have to test it for 6 years before the CDC can make a decision to ban it. They never banned that shit with Aaron Brockovich. And there's a movie about that. Chances of them banning this at the federal level? No. State level? Absolutely yes. So this has taken us into really interesting things, right? So we've got 4 bills passed into law. I worked with one of the gals from the health department not too long ago, permitting. So Suncor up in Commerce City, it's a gas refinery, so they have this PFAS toxic firefighting foam chemical there because it puts out fuel fires. So that's been contaminating the community there because there's no law that says it can't, right? There's like that stupid agreement that we think industry is not going to kill us. And then they're like, yeah, but you don't have a law. So stupid. So as these chemical companies are re-upping their permits, there's now new guidelines. And another bill we passed changed the daily fine from $2,500 a day for violations to something like $47,000 or $50,000. So now Suncor cannot afford $50,000 a day. Before it was $25,000 a day. We'll pay our fine and keep going because it's cheaper than fixing it. Now they literally can't afford it. And part of that bill goes to the communities that are contaminated rather than Suncor releasing some toxic foam and then giving everybody a car wash. So I've met the mom activists in those communities and said, we didn't need a damn car wash. We needed inhalers for our kids, doctor's appointments, paid time off. We're pissed. We don't need a damn car wash. A couple weeks later, we find out Suncor had purchased the car wash to give everybody a car wash and then use it as another tax deduction. The layers are awful. So, good news is you've got a lot of activists working on it, and we could always use more. It's a pretty crazy chemical. Any questions?
I'll help. I just can't do very much, but I'll help you.
Yeah, like right now we're just watching everything being implemented. This started with me and a couple of friends eating spaghetti at my house. How weird is that? Like, what the heck is PFAS? Why don't we come over and eat spaghetti and talk about it? It's pretty weird. Yep.
You're amazing, and I love you.
Oh, I love you guys too. Activism at the local level is phenomenal. We can get so many bills done that way. We've got Tony Exum and Pete Lee and Mark Snyder. They sign on with stuff. They find other Democrats, and boom, we have the majority right now. We can get so much stuff done. So it's more than getting people elected. I learned that over the last couple of years. That's pretty cool. Katie, good to see you. I see your name everywhere.
Liz, I think you need to do us a training on, how to get bills passed.
Oh, absolutely.
really find that interesting.
Other water coalition leaders, and there was even a friend of mine in Italy who joined that session. It was really cool. So thank God for Facebook Translate because she speaks Italian. We met in Boston for a conference where I met Rob a lot. So then, thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie has a website there that her and Meg Fossinger and Randy work on. And then
we just track a whole bunch of state bills, and you'll get regular updates on the social media channels and stuff for when things go to committee and how you can act on them and how you can be more involved. So check it out. We're on Facebook too, but I haven't been on Facebook lately. Just look for Colorado legislation trackers. We have the little guy Bill with the looking through the little from Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock, yeah.
Yeah.
I have that as a T-shirt, of course.
Of course you do.
I am only a bill.
I come with labels. Gosh, I can't wait till we do this in person. So make sure you get this book. It's really good. And I put it in the chat. I have my notes. I did a timeline. I used it as a study guide for writing my legislation. Or trying to figure out the loopholes that they would try to come up with.
Everyone is transitioning back in. One moment. We have 30 more seconds until it's closed. Please hold one moment. Have you double checked that you're sharing sound on the video?
Yeah, we can't hear it. I can't at least.
United we stand, house flora and fauna. United we stand, house pieces of one earth. Black, brown, white, different colors. इंसान है हम, धरती हमारा घर. हम ही मानव हो, यो संसार हमरो घर. मिलोगे Jamais nascido, lekin kulena vashido, wala na matinena.
I think we have everybody back. Chandra, can you confirm?
Confirmed.
Perfect. So these are the websites that I used for the first part of the presentation. We're going to send out a copy of tonight's slideshow for everyone as well, along with any resources that your presenters want us to include. So you don't have to write anything down, but you can at least check them out. So kind of the final closing things here for the next couple of minutes is, within our county level right now, we actually do not have an active environmental initiative or action committee. So if anybody's interested in leading that, joining it, or just learning more about how to make it an active group, please send an email to epcdems@gmail.com and let us know. We would love to get this started again at the local level. If you are not already a member of the Colorado State Party's Democratic Environmental Initiative, you can join them on Facebook. And they're fairly active. I know they do have meetings and an officer committee, so they do try and keep up with things at the state level. But we do want to start getting something going in El Paso County as well. Contact information for tonight's presenters: Amy Gray from 350 Colorado, Jim Lockhart, Sierra Club at the Pikes Peak chapter, and Liz Rosenbaum, Fountain Valley Clean Water Coalition. Again, we'll send all of this to you after this meeting, but if there's anything you wanted to jump into, you're certainly welcome to do so at this time. Also, again, please keep an eye out in your email over the next 24 to 48 hours so that we can get some feedback from you all regarding the format. And moving forward, we'd love to get some more ideas of what you guys would like to hear from us.
It has also been put in the chat, so if you'd like to follow the link from the chat, you're welcome to follow it that way.
Yep, if you want to do it now, it's, I think, 5 questions. It shouldn't take you more than a couple of minutes to answer. And then as far as the local county actions, let's see. If you are not already familiar with our website, certainly jump into epcodemparty.org. You can sign up for the blast. You can check out the calendar as we get more things put together as far as events and activities. Those will start showing up on the calendar. Second Tuesday Showcase. The next one will be May 11th. Our discussion topic then will be Women and Healthcare in honor of Mother's Day. And then in June, we have more information coming. It's in the works. I know I'm hoping that Asia, who's been around this evening, for those of you who are in her group, is helping us with that. So we look forward to getting more details for the June event on June 8th. Also, we're trying to put it on everybody's mind as early as we possibly can. We will be trying to put together our gala and annual fundraiser in fall of 2021. As soon as we have a confirmed date, we will get that out to everyone. But just keep an eye out that that is coming in the fall. As always, we are reliant upon your donations and contributions. If you have not already signed up as a monthly donor, or if you'd like to give us a one-time gift, you can do so through Act Blue. You could also call the party or send us an email, and we'd be happy to either walk you through that process, or if it's a one-time gift, we do accept cash, card, and check. Whatever's easier for you. And again, we're all volunteers. So if you have any time or talent to volunteer, we are always looking to add more people to our group. In particular, precinct organizers, there's over 100, and I think it's closer to 200 unfulfilled positions right now. If you are not already a precinct organizer, or if your precinct is already covered, please consider adopting a precinct that you don't live in and helping us make contact with Democratic voters in other precincts. Also an opportunity for you to meet your neighbors, become more active at the county level, and build your political activism scale moving forward. So that's all I have for this evening. Thank you all for coming. If anybody wants to stick around and chat, we'll let everybody get off mute and video, and you guys can have your end of session with each other if you'd like. But otherwise, thank you to Liz, Amy, and Jim for coming out. If the three of you want to stick in case anybody has any last-minute questions, we'd appreciate that too. Otherwise, have a great evening. And look, theoretically, we ended 30 minutes early. So that may be a first. Put it in the books.
Thank you, Chandy. Thank you, Ultra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.